All right, everybody. I hope you guys are having a great start to your week. I am super excited that we finally get to do the final battle today. Um, Hopefully it goes as well as I think it's gonna go. Um, I should be able to down the boss. I don't see why not. So, you know, I'll just go ahead and prepare real quick, and then once we're ready, I will hop on over. So. Uh, Make sure I have enough heals going on here. All right, I think that's pretty good. Oh, it would help if I actually switched over to the thing so you guys can see. My bad. I'm like over here just like working away on my build. Whoops. Alrighty, let's see. So I should probably give myself some sort of protection here. Do Iron Will. And maybe ooh, hasten for sure. That'll be awesome. Merciless Reaper's pretty good, but that only takes 4 Ichor. That's not too bad. Maybe I should keep that on. Oh, let me turn up my music. I was like, why is it so loud? Oh yeah, that's right. I got. Oh man, trying to function after immediately picking up. Ooh, 30. Might have to do final journey as like just in case. Try to finish the boss off. But I don't know. We'll see how it goes with that. It's pretty good. And I know the boss itself is not weak to any status. So we're just gonna go with physical stuff. Ivy. Island. Remember. Immersive. That's a little more kicker. Louis sword, which well. Let me see.
Need some. The situation is. I don't.
Buddies here that I have.
Waste not. Let me know anytime you want to head out.
Honestly.
It's the day of the silver.
Please take care of Silva.
Don't forget.
I will. Hopefully. That's the goal. That's
Make
what
sure
we're
you get
aiming
back
for,
safe.
is to down him on the first try.
How are you feeling?
Oh, I also did a couple different for character. Thought I would make them more interesting instead of.
Wow, that smells wonderful. I wonder. Anyway. You see what you wanted? We're here to help too. Don't try to do it all by yourself. Let's head out.
Debating who should I use as my partner. I know I most likely should use Yakumo. Like
Hey!
Mr. Tanky. But I Might be good to bring some. Help me burn the boss down.
Stock up.
Not that could be absorbed by the bodies.
Stop by when you're. Go out there and give it to him.
All the items. All of them.
How are. The loss of the mist invites total ruin. We have to prevent that.
Excuse me, sorry, like, hours just kicking the shit out of me. Well, she road clearing. Sadly, I can't really do too much about it. Full bar items here. Okay. That's good. Keep here. I'm trying to see. I don't like it. Sure. Alright, let's go do this. I gotta. Oops, I forgot to take apart. I think I might take Io. She is like very, very like aggressive. It's like any sort of threat. So she usually blasts them before I have a chance to even kill a whole lot of them. So it might be for her. Alright, I gotta remember I can get there.
Let's make it another good day.
So
I will keep watch.
also the key is to try not to lose. There's another pistol. Well, maybe there is. I hope there is. Like when I go down the elevator, I hope there's. Otherwise, that's gonna be a bit of a.
We will not be fooled.
Beefy guys in white here. Jesus Christ. Wow, I died. Are you serious? And Io didn't even heal me? Wow. It's a great start.
I was waiting for you.
Alright, maybe not Io. Let's do Yakumo. I feel like Yakumo would keep me up. I Wow, that was a terrible start. Of course, it didn't help I didn't, like, warm up at all. I mean, at least I didn't have, like, a crazy amount of ichor. I mean, haze.
Here's hoping we find something interesting.
Alright. Surely this time will be different.
Stand out like a sore thumb. There.
Eat it.
You have to take whatever you can use.
Alright, there's my...
That's a big help. Don't mess with the best, right? Good. Grab that.
Alright. Let's see.
Take him down.
Especially since I like these like really lightweight mass builds. Oh yeah. Got them all, buddy.
I guess
Yeah.
that worked out.
Let's go. Look up. I need to go. So. Alright, I'm probably gonna get a little lost, so. That's okay, that'll help.
Threat spotted. Your guns no longer being prepared. Keep an eye on our rear. Where can we get onto that beam from?
Seemed like the right. Maybe I should go back to. Or back to my.
Prepare now, so you don't
Figure out which
regret it later.
Alright. So. This one. Wait, there's. Somewhere, I think I can turn.
Don't run too far ahead.
It go. This one. No. The hell did I? Start. Hey.
That's a bring it anytime. How's this?
Yeah.
That's a real gem.
That was 100% on
Got
me,
something we
not
can use?
Giacomo. Or not. Here it is. Here it is.
Moving out.
Gotta look out for the little tentacles that come out of the walls. Really fucking annoying.
Looks like an easy fight. Maybe too easy. No harm in being prepared.
Okay, here it is. Exactly what.
An elevator. Does it lead to our goal?
I've been waiting. Please, spin a thread of memory for me.
Nope. Alright.
I'd be pretty bummed if.
Yeah, come on, pick it. Yakumo, I need you. Bruh. There better be a missile now. Alright, this is like unnecessarily. Come on. There we go.
Away.
I cannot understand. The actions you've chosen to take, they can bring nothing but further disaster to this land. I cannot allow that mistake to repeat itself a second time. Stand by their side and attend to them. That is enough. It is the duty with which we have all been entrusted. If you lose your way, if you take one false step, it will lead to that same result. That's not true. Yes, as attendants, it may be that we were all born from Cruz's weakness. But we are not all identical to one another. Our experiences are unique. Through our journeys, I have experienced the memories of so many different people. I have witnessed the passion with which they lived their lives. And what I've found for every single one of those people is that they fought as hard as they could to survive. They pushed themselves, for the sake of others, to keep living. It didn't matter if they had lived as a human or if they had lived as a revenant. They still struggled on. It was the same for the successors, just as it was for so many of our poor sisters. I do not wish to cling to a futile mission out of fear and let myself stand by, hoping for a peaceful ending.
You guys hear the game alright?
I will struggle. I will fight. Against Cruz's sin and against my duty. What it means to be alive. Io, it's true. There does seem to be something different within you. Something that sets you apart from the other attendants.
He's the special.
Very well. I bequeath all to you. And so, I beg of you, please, save everyone.
I was gonna say, what about all these other ones? There's like, speak for all of us, apparently.
knows what's waiting through here. Come on, let's move.
Big ass door.
We're in the deepest depths now.
Give me a pistol. So I teleport here and not have to run all the way through all that stuff.
Gross. There's a lake of blood down
I
there.
was about to freak out. I was like, no, 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 no. There we go. Heals back here. I don't even have enough keys to use it. 240. Max level is 300. I almost like wanted to grind, but that would have taken too long. Oh well. What up, bitch? I probably shouldn't talk shit. He's probably gonna bop me the first time I met. That would be what I get for talking shit unnecessarily. This is Anderson Silva before his leg got broken, so to go. We got
That's a mean. Bring it anytime. Much obliged. How's this? No harm in being prepared. Get ready. Bring it anytime. Come on, there.
completely
Get ready.
that. Let's try. Oh no.
Better.
Shit. I didn't think that would hit me from the back. Oh man, I was so close. Okay. That was our warm up, so it's okay. Alright, let me
Oh, you almost gave me
No,
a
I can-
heart attack.
up.
Were we unprepared?
Let's do this.
I appreciate it.
Okay, we got it this time.
Double check your gear, okay? Bring it anytime.
way too much damage. I didn't think he would track me that well. I was moving so fast. Why? Oh, we almost had him.
You back up, huh?
We'll do it this time.
That's a big help. Don't worry about harm in being prepared. I won't get in the way. Bring it anytime.
Yeah, pretty much. What's up, Gacho? How's it going?
Too worked up.
I mean, it's really my fault for just getting kind of greedy.
Ready for this?
Like, I'm just trying to burn him down before he kills Yakumo, because he killed Yakumo on one of the tries. And, oh.
Bring it anytime. Thanks, friend.
Already, like... I feel like that makes like cool down.
No harm in being. Bring it anytime.
Oh my god.
Better.
It's so fucking hard. What's going on? What's in my voice? This was brutal. It's a picture back here. Didn't like that. He's like, fuck your shield.
okay?
Dodge button well before he does that. That's annoying.
Stay relaxed and focused.
Easy for you to say.
No harm. There. You're a godsend.
You never tell, like, the exact range. Max that look like it should
Bring it anytime. How's this? Get ready. Stay focused. Lives, bring it anytime.
Why? What the fuck? That would've been- Yes. Ooh, thank you. I appreciate it, Gotcha. I know I got one more fight. Because I saved everybody, so... That should be what happens, if I did this right. Yeah. I mean, we just beat his ass, so... Of course he did. Oh, woo! There are old relics out there, just like chilling. Oh, so many bees! So many bees! Inside of me! Not really big. Okay, big bosses are generally easier. Ew, it's got a bundle. Wow, actually it worked. Oh, I agree. the shit out of me. Wow, wow. Oh, okay. Oh, Yakumo already. Alright. Well, at least this time we'll get to feel it. It's
Really
actually
had me
kind of
worried.
better to die the first time, I think. I feel
Time for some payback, huh?
yeah, it's really hard. We'll figure it out. We figured out Silva, and he was like way faster.
Ah,
So
I appreciate it. Bring it anytime.
oh, I didn't have my sneak.
No harm in being prepared. Bring it anytime.
It's like a little harder to hit with. Alright, we're gonna use a two-handed sword for this.
There's gotta be a trick to it. We won't give
No, there
up.
isn't a trick. I just have something. Sword. Yeah, we're gonna do it. I'm gonna get it. So, I feel like hit pretty well in this. Oh, triple annihilator. I don't know if being fast is necessarily great for this fight. Oh, I don't know if this improved region. Good. Let's go back. be a little bit more tanky. It's pretty good. It's doing me good. Well, if I take off Swift Destruction, hastens. So doesn't really do any debuffs. Oh yeah, I got a final journey as well. Alright, I'm gonna try this. Doesn't. I am a bit slower, but that's okay.
Double check your gear, okay?
Yakuba's like, I don't want it.
Ah, I appreciate it. No harm in being prepared.
Wow. Thanks. Oh god. Ow.
Bring it anytime. No harm in being prepared.
Yeah. We did it. Okay, we just have to use the monster hunter one and stay underneath it from behind. Okay. And hit it with a big sword. Slap till dead. I'm dead. Odd. The boob jiggle, jeez. Boobs and feet. You literally like me because it's like your one purpose. It's your job. Like, I was the MC, like, struggling here, and she's just like, slurp. Immediately. Me too, I'm not the special anymore? No. We're all stored in the boobs. This little hat. Now I can wear it again. Now it'll be the correct size. And Emily! Oh yeah. Ooh, and Karen. Yeah, girl. Karen got that dumpy thick.
Everything is now so clear. My purpose and why I stood by you like I did. So many around us are lost, wandering much like myself for so long,
Yeah, it's
but
pretty.
no more. Now I found my
because it's super, super light. Okay, we're just chilling back at base now. Hell yeah. Aaron, we got everybody. Alright, let's see. Let's talk to Emily.
Today I invited Yakumo to work for the provisional government, but he turned me down outright. Sorry, but just like you've got things you want to do, I've got things I want to do too. Yeah, he hasn't changed a bit. Well, I didn't want to work for them at first either. After a while of fighting to survive, I noticed I'd made a bunch of friends along the way. And here I am stuck with them. But I guess they're all pretty great, so I don't regret it at all.
I'm glad to see that things have calmed down a bit here. Although Louie's worried again. Are the two of you ever satisfied? You finally earned some peace, so why not enjoy it? Well, whatever you choose, I'll go along with you. Do what you feel is right.
The Lost are still a dire threat to the survival of humanity, but the new provisional government is at last on a course to stop them. Silva is pushing reforms to aid as many revenants as possible. I can finally get to the job of exploring the depths in earnest. You've been a great help. I must thank you.
You've been sending me to do your
I
one
nearly
job.
forgot. I have a message for you. The provisional government would appreciate your cooperation. Please contact the government if you seek work with real meaning.
Wait, so Silva is still alive? Guess we saved him too.
Is that amber blood bead Io gave you all right? It's a piece of her memory and a manifestation of her strength. Handle it with care. Karen and the others say it's made of the same substance as the weeping tree Io gave us after taking on all the relics. It has the ability to alter the relic's influence, if only in a small way.
Okay.
There are no changes in the weeping tree. It's completely normal. Don't worry. If anything happens, I swear I'll do everything in my power to stop it. Meanwhile, it's time we both do what we need to. My mission as a Watcher has ended, but my duty to protect the world still remains. I won't allow the hell here to escape and torment those outside.
Except that there's
The
like,
relic's
still
power created
giant
the
monsters
weeping
now.
tree, thanks to Io's wish, and there's no sign of the Queen coming back. It must have taken a strong will. We're ordinary revenants without the power of the relics, but our mission still remains. As long as I live, I will continue to watch over that power, together with Jack. I've looked through documents from the Great Collapse, and the more I read, the more I understand why those creatures are called horrors. They're immune to even the most powerful weapons, and immortal like the lost that plagued the Jail of the Mists. Now I understand why revenants had to be created. The situation was that dire. And the horrors are still roaming the outside world. It must be incredibly difficult living out there.
Alright. So they're still out there. But little man, now your hat
All the
fits,
power was
kind
sucked right out of my body. I was so big and strong. But now look at me. But now Jack's training me to grow strong again. I don't see Mia as much as I used to, but I always feel close to her, even when we're apart. I think it's because we respect each other so much now. I miss her, but a knight has his duty.
You know, now that you're a revenant, I don't think you're gonna grow up. I think you're just gonna be this little, like gremlin of a kid forever.
I plan to start research with Karen that will hopefully lead to methods for controlling thirst in revenants. I don't know if we'll ever find an answer, but I'm sure it will lead to better lives in the Jail of the Mists. It would be nice if Louis could work with us.
Yeah, I know this is related to God Eater.
In the years after Io stopped the relics from frenzying and transformed into the Weeping Tree, Karen and the others discovered a reliable source of blood beads. And the question I've pondered for so long, what as a revenant can I do? What about the outside world and the horrors there? We analyzed the signals intercepted from outside when the red mist appeared. There were countless cries for help. As revenants, we prey upon humanity. We might bring them nothing but misery. Even so, I can't just give up.
We finally secured a steady supply of blood beads. Once again, we have Io to thank. On the day she took all of the relics, I was suddenly my old self again. And ever since then, she's been producing blood beads and even maintaining the red mist. So even if it's only a little, I want to make it so people can have normal lives in this world she's protecting for us. That's my wish.
Oh yeah, Karen.
This garbage heap may just have become a slightly better garbage heap. That means people have less use for what I'm selling. I'm only joking. Don't worry about me. Do your thing, okay?
No, I never went. Havoc told me at some point. But any so. Go in the past. Get a super spicy ending. Go in the bath. Okay. Let's see, what else can I do now?
This garbage heap, that means... Don't worry.
That's... Campaign safe. Exploration. Permanent blood beads. Surviving rate. Silva's service. Let's go out the door now. Oh, depart out of the red mist. We've been able to return here. I'm surprised the spikes didn't like go away or transform, since they were from like the Queen and now Io's got all the stuff. But I'm no longer the special. How will I survive? happen to work on this. Immediately gets killed by horror as soon as I step out. How about you playing with us since you're such a badass? That's your rock show. That's been open for quite a while. They could have totally let, like, one of the horrors in. Skip. I don't know if there was anything in the credits that maybe I should. Alright, so I get Hades. Queen. Alright, hell yeah. Nice. Do I have
Here's
to go
hoping we
into
find something interesting.
No, I got like the Hades and Queen and all. Alright, let's go back. I don't know, I gotta figure out what game I'm gonna play next since I beat this. maybe... I don't know. Maybe I'll consider that sometime. Play. What I think I'm gonna do is I think I'm gonna stick you guys in the lobby real quick to see what game I want to play this here. If you guys want me to try the new depths, I will definitely consider that. So please let me know in chat there. Oops. Oh crap, I just adjusted something on my mic and I didn't mean to. Then to adjust the volume on my headphones here. Alright, let me see what I got here. So I have Devil May Cry 5, which I still haven't played yet. I had to buy Elden Ring before I could before I could play it. I do have it on my wish list, so I guess next time it goes on sale, I will try to pick that up because that seems like people would probably be pretty interested in me playing it. Let's see. I also have Resident Evil 3 remake. I have Resident Evil Village. I still have Silent Hill 2 remake, but it didn't play very well on my computer. So, and I have Silent Hill F, which also probably I can't imagine my computer would be able to play it very well. Claire Obscure Exhibition 33. Resident Evil, wanted to see that. Which one of the Resident Evils? I do have Resident Evil 2 remake where I could do Claire's playthrough because I did Leon's playthrough on stream already. I have Resident Evil 3, which is with Jill. And I have Resident Evil Village, which is the 8th game with Ethan. You don't know the difference? Gotcha. Yeah, I wish I could play it on stream. I don't think my computer is going to be able to handle it though. Because Silent Hill 2 is like, yeah, Village does have Lady Dimitrescu. I also have South of Midnight. I have Detroit Become Human. I haven't played it yet. I really want to play Expedition 33. I can see if my computer can run it like on stream. I could try. Let me give it a shot and see how it does. I gotta install it real quick. So that's gonna take just a minute there. I mean, I have been like super looking forward to playing it. Like, I might have to do some like finagling. Like, I might have to turn off my VTuber model. But we'll see. Maybe it'll be okay. Like I was able to play Final Fantasy 16, but that was with like nothing like running like without like VTube Studio, OBS. I also have VBridger open and then having like Twitch and all that good stuff like being open. It's pretty hard on my computer. Hell yeah. I completely forgot about parrying in Code Vein. Alright, well that installs. Probably going to take a few minutes here. I will show you the fan art I'm working on. I did post it on like Blue Sky and stuff, but This is the progress I made so far on Emily and Yakumo here. This is like, so this is gonna be like the lighting and the values, like the shading and stuff. I haven't put on his like flats, which are his like local colors. Uh, I should probably do that a little bit while we wait for the game to install. So let's go ahead and do that. I can make a little bit of progress here while we wait. All right, so let's go ahead and, like I said, I need to do his local colors, so I could start putting those on. Oh, where's his main body? Main body lines, main colors, base. There we go. So let's put this on. Thanks. All right, so let's find. Kind of want to give him like a little bit of an in between his. Actually, you know what? If I do it from his like his actual official fan art, I can pick his skin color from there. There we go. Wow, it's like a lot lighter than I thought it would be, but that's okay. Nah, I'm good. I'm gonna go outside and possibly die. So you know, I can just build this whole thing because everything's gonna go on top of his skin color anyway. So just build the whole. Oh my god, I'm freaking out while I do this because it's stalling. So wow, that didn't make much of a difference at all in the color. Might have to figure something out here. All right, so skin it hits. Let's do that next. We'll do his shirt here. Like this. I think that didn't make any different color at all. You know what? I wonder if it's because the base is. If I make the base his skin color, maybe that'll make a difference. Oh, changed nothing. Huh. I thought this would work a little different if I put it as multi. Okay, that changed a little bit. Made it darker. I don't know. I used a different technique than I normally do to do this image. Guess we'll find out. Maybe this makes it. Oh, that one made a difference, even not being multiplied. Set the up after I lay them down. I feel like the colors in the game are a little different than this. let's pull it from screenshot. Do like the lighter color. Am I doing this on the wrong order? I am. Son of a bitch. Ah. Ah. I hate it when I do things on the wrong layer. That looks a little bit better. Lighter color. I might even make. Oh, there we go. Yeah, that's a little bit better. Let me check on 33. It's at 73% done. I'll have to add it to like my OBS. Do all that fun jazz to set it up. This because we'll change it silver color eventually anyway. I did want to do a couple other like Code Vein fan arts because I noticed there's not a lot, which is kind of surprising. I guess it's too edgy for most people, I guess. Make fan art out of it. I can go clean that. I know, it's like crazy. That's like wild to me. Lifting the rug looking for it. Where's the fan art? Yo, what's up, Alex? Not bad at all. I just beat Code Vein. So that's my very first Souls-like game that I've ever completed. I am installing Clear Obscura Expedition 33 to see if my computer can handle it. If it can't handle it, I'm gonna have to pick a different game to play on stream, which is not a big deal. You know, I know everybody's struggling with gaming right now because of the cost of like all PC parts are insane. But I would like to play something else on stream. 'Cause I do like having like gaming streams and art streams. But what I'm doing right now is like while I wait for Claire Obscura to install, I was adding some of the local colors to the Code Vein fan art. Okay, so that is now installed. Let me just finish cleaning this real quick. Definitely gonna have to close down Clip Studio. That's for damn sure. That eats a lot of resources. Nice. Yeah, I was gonna do some more Code Vein fan art too once I was um done with this one. So Monday. I mean, I mean, right now for me it's not a big deal. Uh because all I do is stream at the moment, but for those not streaming, I totally get it. That Mondays suck. But Mondays are kind of just like awkward anyway, because it's like transitioning from the weekend is always like kind of uncomfortable, kind of janky, kind of awkward, you know. Like I said, I'll just finish cleaning up these spots that don't need this local color. I don't know. It's definitely interesting using like a slightly different workflow. Like I don't normally do like black and white, like grayscale, the color. I normally just check the values like after the fact. So I might have to do some like back and forth like adjustments between making it like, black and white, color. It is important to make sure like your values are so. Yeah. Yeah, my computer might explode, so, I gotta be prepared for disaster. I don't know, maybe I need to do like a Kickstarter or GoFundMe or something to get a beefier PC here. But I feel bad taking money from people, especially since everybody's broke, so, I know how it is. It just sucks because like so many modern games are requiring like, you know, more expensive hardware, and like they're just then the prices of that hardware just keep going up, and the availability of them is because those damn clinkers. Well, it's mostly AI's fault because AI is sucking up all the RAM, making everything expensive on top of our drinkable water. So assholes. All right, cool. Able to clean that part up. So yeah, yeah, I would definitely would download it ahead of time, install it. All right, let me save this, and I'm gonna stick you guys back in the lobby here for a second because I do have to set it up real quick. I'm gonna turn out the music so it's gonna be a little quiet. Flip. And save. That I need to close anything that's unnecessary. Here's three. Two. I am gonna have to scene for. So you guys are gonna probably blank for a little bit. Let's do. Good. Oh, it's probably because I turned my head like away from it and uh, see it. You guys hear that? Yep. All right, let's see. Go to our settings here. See what we got. It's put it on medium. It's not too bad. Things. Might need to let's see. We're turning motion blur off. I fucking hate motion blur. It's the worst. Might be able to play it, so we're just gonna see how it goes when I get into it. So. Alright, pick up my controller here. Let's see. Let's see, game difficulty. Most difficulty games. Expedition. Intended difficulty with challenging combat. Deal normal damage. Let's do normal. Can't really hear me over the music. Okay. I will fix it. Yeah. Is that a little bit better? Can you hear me now over the music? Right. So far, so good. I'm excited. I really, really wanted to play this game. We'll see how it goes when I get into the actual gameplay. This is our trial by fire to see if it'll work with like my model and OBS and streaming running. Taking a really long time. Do 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 do. Waiting for the game to load. Assuming that's what. God. Huh. You can do it, little buddy. I believe in you. You gonna freeze? You gonna crash? I'm so nervous. Oh no. Oh my friend. Frame rate is pretty dookie right now. Yeah, it's crap. Turn my model off. Oh my god, yeah, the frame rate is so janky. Fuck you. Oh my god. Oh man, it looks terrible.
If you're gonna give someone flowers, you should probably do it before they wither and die.
What, the flower? Or Sophie?
Ooh, dark. Sophie would approve. Hey, you said it, not me. The others are waiting for you. You're supposed to be helping with the festival.
With what? Putting up 3 tables? They'll manage.
You underestimate Lumiere's enthusiasm for the expedition. There's at least 5 tables.
Marvelous.
Have you tried throwing with your other arm instead? If you could hit the paintress directly, that would actually be useful.
You know, hobbies don't always have to be useful. I'm enjoying the uselessness of today and readying my usefulness for tomorrow. And soon, I'll get to do a lot more than throw rocks.
That's what all the other expeditions said.
Hey, you know they gave their lives to lay the trail for us, right?
Yeah, I know. Sorry.
Yeah.
You still got a flower to give, no?
Yes. Just... I'm not sure how to start. After 4 years apart, what do I say to her on the day of her gamage?
You're asking me. I don't know. Sun's about to set, so be direct. Hey, Soph, been a while. Could we...
Yeah, it's really bad. Let me try turning off my VTuber mod. That might make a difference. Sorry guys, I'm gonna disappear from your screen here. Ooh. Ooh. That does not... does not look great. I don't know. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, it's moving a little bit better, but...
Alright, let's go.
Oh my god, she like teleported
Are
away.
you ready to see her again?
Yeah. Been ready.
Les croissants and les baguettes. Oh, ho, ho, ho. With the stinky cheese. I really don't speak French at all, so... and I really don't want to offend anybody French who might be watching. I really have nothing against French people. French food is amazing. Havoc and I, for our wedding, our dinner after the wedding, we went to this amazing French restaurant in New York City, and it's still, to this day, the best meal I've ever
these
had.
grapple shortcuts. Nice, huh? Don't tell your sister, though. I sort of borrowed the hooks from the Expedition Academy. Wish I had them when I was working as a courier.
Oh, it's so janky. I don't know, like, I'm not 100% sure I can enjoy the game.
Come on, good stuff. Speed up a
Being
bit.
janky like this.
Sophie will have already gamaged by the time you've arrived.
My head.
Might need to try a less intensive game for stream. I feel like it'll play a little bit better probably without like OBS and stuff running. This might be a game I might have to just enjoy myself.
Can't believe Sophie already turned 33. She looks so much younger than you.
Thanks.
She's popular. I'm sure she already has a necklace full of flowers.
I can imagine.
That jump's kind of silly. I'm not gonna lie. Granted, this was like made by an extremely small team. Like, this is not a AAA studio, and it still is awesome.
What?
You look tense.
Yeah, yeah.
I know what you need. A little jewel.
No.
Come on, it'll loosen you up. You can't go and see Sophie all somber and tense. And if you win, I'll give you something you can use with your Lumina converter.
All right, you're on.
Yes!
Mail's like, I'm gonna beat your ass. Yeah, I should do the tutorial. Battle wheel. During your turn, your character can attack, aim, use a skill, or use an item. Skills consume AP to use. You can gain AP by performing a base attack or parry. Characters play turn by turn. The turn order is indicated in the timeline on the left side. Try attacking to gain 1 AP. Slap. Enemy turn. Enemies usually perform 1 action per turn. You can defend during their attack. Mael will now attack. During an enemy attack, dodge at the right time to avoid damage. Dodging at the last moment will trigger a perfect dodge. Press B to dodge. The character's AP can be used to cast skills. Each character can have up to 6 skills equipped. Try to use a skill. Gustav's Overcharge. Gustav starts with 2 skills, Lumere, Assault, and Overcharge. He can use attacks and skills to charge up his Overcharge meter and unleash a devastating blow with his Overcharge skill. Use Lumere Assault to gain charges. Right. The only French person I have something against him is the creator of Miraculous Ladybug, because one of my students won a contest to meet him, and I accompanied her as the responsible adult, and the guy never showed up. He was very disappointed. Wow. Yeah, that's super lame. Did you ever get an explanation why he never showed up? Okay, at the right time. Alright, QTE. Pressing A at the right time will improve your skills effects. Increase damage or added bonus effects. Achieved. Perfect. Timing to unleash even stronger effects. Alright, during an enemy attack, you can also parry. Parry shares the same timing as perfect dodge, but is more difficult than regular dodge. Parrying recovers 1 AP in addition to avoiding the damage. Press right button to parry. Press right button to parry again. Parrying every hit of an enemy attack triggers a powerful counter. Press RB to parry. Oh damn. Alright. Gustav's Overcharge. Gustav's Overcharge meter is full. Use the Overcharge skill now to unleash a devastating blow. Skill.
For those who come after.
Oh, messed up the QTE.
You won. Now, don't you feel better? I see your smile. All right, now, let's go find Sophie. I saw her near the red and white tree.
Yeah.
Oh, the plaza is lively. Why people like to celebrate the Gommage is still a mystery to me, but oh well.
I don't know. I mean, I've heard like French people can be like really abrasive, but I mean, I haven't traveled, so I don't have anything. I don't have any personal experience with that. I also don't
Red and
blame
white
them
tree.
for not liking
I've always
like
found it
Americans.
beautiful.
We're
Don't
pretty much the
really
worst. So
understand.
at least
At
a large majority, unfortunately.
Clearly, you never
I would
got
love
over
to
it.
change that outlook
Why'd you wait until today to say
on the
something?
world, but it's kind of hard in the current state
It's
of
a bit
things.
late, isn't it?
Mail, so cute.
Sophie's down there.
Yeah, I know.
Good luck. I'll be here for you if things don't go as planned.
Thanks.
Are you a fool as well, Gustav, with your handsome face? Handsome son of a bitch. This game is French as fuck. Which is okay. I like it. It's very pretty.
The last few days meant everything.
Can we talk?
Gustav. I love you all.
That's for your, if there's room.
There's always room.
Biggest rose.
You know,
And
I'm
if you-
sorry that... I
You
miss
don't need
too.
to... Okay.
You go.
No, you.
You know how I feel? I wish things had been... You know, I often think... Another path, you know, another future.
Still can't finish your sentences, can you?
Yep, that hasn't changed.
missed that. I never faulted you for wanting to believe. You're fighting to change things.
Awkward.
I understand. Just in a different world, right?
We'll break the cycle, so she can't steal anyone else's future.
Stubborn people change the world. And you are the most stubborn person I know. Thank you. Walk me to the harbor?
Yes.
Is it just me, or do their heads look a little, like, disproportionately large to their bodies? Like it's fine. Oh, it just seemed a little bit large. That's okay though. Character. It's just a trash can. It's where the rubbish goes. I get an achievement for looking at all the trash cans. No, I can't look at that. Boo. This world is so cool. Hey, yo.
Oh, hi, Sophie. So Gustav really did come, huh?
Yeah, he did.
As he stands right
knew he
behind
would.
us.
Shh. He might hear us.
You're a lucky one, you know?
I know that.
But he is too.
Looks like you still have a lot of flowers left.
Well, there are less and less people to buy them. I just wish you didn't have to wear one.
Tiffany.
I should finish cleaning up here and join everyone at the harbor. See you.
See you.
Listen.
I can't imagine what you're going through.
I'm fine. I'm fine. I've lived 33 good years. Look around. We've had our whole lives to prepare. We're all fine. Mostly.
I'm not fine.
You will be.
Sleep at night. Mostly. Anybody has seen the movie Aliens from James Cameron? It's like one of my favorite sci-fi horror movies, like, ever. It's so good. Oh my god, so many people. Surprised my computer's not exploding as we speak. People have gathered here on their way to the harbor, reuniting one last time. By the way, I hope the accents are too bad when I'm doing it. Ooh, a shiny. Maybe I should have been, like, more snoopy about, like, exploring the area. Oh, Oh, yeah. Seriously. Sure. Really want to get this. Oh, there is a. Oh. Roma. I'll take it. I want to be her. She's pretty. Sophie. Oh yeah, I mean there's tons of people out there, like, you know, that's also part of, like, you know, why I'm trying to bring together so many artists and convey that art is not a competition, it can be a wonderful, wonderful collaboration. And that's how, like, beautiful games and beautiful things get made, is when we all come together and we work together towards a common goal.
Scintillating Sophie. You're as gorgeous as always.
Cyril, you flatterer. Need some help with your writing again?
Beautiful and perceptive, per usual. See, I'm preparing the headline for tomorrow, and who could write it better than someone who celebrates her special day today?
True. So, what will the article be about?
Actually...
You don't know?
Oh, well...
You really are lazy.
Help me again, Sophie, please. My boss will kill me.
Sure. Let me think of a headline.
The pale sun ascends above the crimson blossoms. Expedition 33 shall be the destined. Cyril really needs to take his job seriously. I don't know. I'm gonna be sassy.
Cyril really needs to take his job seriously.
Oh, come on. I really need your help.
Take that, nerd.
The pale sun ascends above the crimson blossoms.
A headline about the contrast of beauty and death. With a paintress each year claiming the beauty of this world. Okay, now I'm inspired. You really are a divine being, Sophie.
Don't forget to credit me.
I would never. Thank you for all these times.
It's always been a pleasure, my friend. Take care of yourself.
Yeah.
By the way, let me know if I'm going too fast through the dialogue here. I have a bad habit of skipping through things. Step 2. Yeah, I mean, a lot of that has to do with, like executives and stuff making decisions that they think is going to make them money versus actually creating a game that's, like, enjoyable.
Oh, Sophie.
And by stifling creativity, that makes things, like, really bland and like mayonnaise.
Marie.
Your flowers? I didn't know about. I thought you were younger. And yet you didn't have children.
I'm not
Rude.
having this conversation with you again. Not today.
No, this is Expedition 33. I finished Code Vein earlier in the stream. Like, I literally, the last thing I had to do was fight the final boss. So that's what I did at the beginning, and then this is what I haven't I'm not sure if I'm going to continue to play this on stream or not, because it might run a little bit better without like OBS on it. I don't know. We'll see.
Do you care so little about the future of Lumiere? How can you be so selfish?
Yeah, this is a test run.
I'm not selfish enough to bring others into our doomed world.
Ooh, sick burn. Also incredibly true. I mean, that's even true for like the current state of things. Like the world kind of sucks right now, so you know, why bring somebody into it to suffer? But you know, I'm not saying people shouldn't have children, but things really need to improve so it can be a good place for them.
I know we are not many to think like this now.
We got to make the changes.
And it destroyed my relationship with the person I loved the most. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'd like to spend this moment with him. And you should cherish this moment with your daughter.
Sorry. See you at the harbor.
Good luck, Mary.
Mary's totally gonna die, like, right away. For being an asshole. She's also not an MC, so, you know, she doesn't have the plot armor. She just swings her arms around. People who are about to go to Gamage leave their furniture, so that others may do. There might be items in.
We can use that.
Hell yeah. I knew it. Snooping was useful. I'm definitely gonna have to do fan art of this game. This is so...
Hey, you! You seem like a woman with exquisite taste. I just finished my sculpture of the legendary Esquier. This may be my life's finest work, yet not a single soul seems to care.
I thought it was a cool statue.
How could I make it better?
Perhaps you could paint it. Add some color.
Paint it? Brilliant. I knew you were the right person to ask. Thank you for your insight.
You're most welcome.
I shall get to work tomorrow. I see you're wearing flowers. What's your name?
Sophie.
Sophie. As a thank you, I shall chisel your name onto the statue.
Yeah.
Oh, you don't have to.
But I will.
Hell yeah. Oh, I'm sure. Like, it seems like this game's, like, story is gonna be very much for the feels. As far as I know about the storyline,
Gestural costume is the best.
it's gonna be quite an emotional journey.
Hey, madame, do you think the Gestrals really exist?
Of course they do.
That's what I think too. The others laugh, but I know they're real. One day, I will meet one.
While I do my little dance.
Even if it means joining an expedition. I'll raise a Gestral army and we'll crush the Paintress. And me and my little brother will live with the Gestrals and they'll be our new family. We're tired of the orphanage. If the legends are true, they really like to fight. That's why I'm training every day by beating up my little brother.
Wow.
That's... yeah. You would make a great Jestral.
Thanks.
Underneath little brother's mask is just like 2 black eyes, and he's like missing teeth. Their little jig is like taking me out, though. Oh, you look pompous.
Oh, Sophie. What a lovely smell.
Oh.
Thank you,
Weird.
Richard.
Oh.
I could recognize it from miles away.
Definitely not weird. This guy's totally not her stalker.
It's good you're here, Sophie.
Yeah.
I have a favor to ask
Hello.
you.
Anything for my beloved sewing teacher?
We are of the same cohort. Today is my gommage. And my son and I had a fight last night.
Better mom. Yeah, so as far as I understand, whatever number the paintress paints on this big like statue thing out in the ocean is like the age that people are going to die at, and it keeps getting like lower and lower. So it was 34, so everybody that's 33 years old, or at least a group of people that are 33 years old, are going to be sent on this expedition to try to slay the paintress and end the cycle before everybody dies off, before everybody gone. So all these people that have flowers are all 33 years old, so they're all being sent on the expedition.
He said he wants to join the expedition. He wants to waste the last year of his life. I didn't want that for him. I used to think it was a bad choice. Today, I no longer do. I know I made a mistake.
It's kind of cool.
I try to impose my views on him when he is much braver than I will ever be. So I sewed a special uniform for him. That's my last gift.
I also like that the characters aren't like teenagers saving the world, you know? Like in anime. They're actually a bit closer to my age. I'm a bit older than them, but you know, I would have been gone already in this world, so.
Could you bring it to him?
Unless I suplex the paintress, because I totally would have done that.
Of course. I'll bring it to Jules.
Jules Verne.
He won't join the Gamage ceremony, but he will be at the Expedition Festival tonight for sure. Oh, but you...
Don't worry. I'll ask Gustav.
Hey, that's okay, no worries. I mean, you're keeping me company for the time being. I really appreciate you being here, even if you don't necessarily care for the game itself.
For this moment?
I'm still not sure if I'm going to continue to play this on stream or if I'm just going to continue it off stream.
I'm glad. He's a good person.
I do like to put a lot of hours into RPGs. So...
Yes.
Some people might not, like, be along for that long of a ride, you know?
Thanks to both of you. And see you.
See you.
Like, I put so many hours into Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Like, I probably spent way too much time on it. Like... They are trying to recruit for future expeditions. The number of people volunteering is going down every year. What up, homie?
Why does Manon keep saying death comes to us all?
Eventually die, because you're human.
You haven't heard that before?
No.
Unofficial expedition motto. You never heard Lucien say it either. It's one of his favorites.
I think he prefers, "We're already dead, you're just catching up."
I mean, I'm a big fan of like story-based games, like JRPGs and RPGs in general. Final Fantasy VII is one of my like all-time favorite games. So when the remakes came out, with like brand new like perspectives and content and the way the game played, I was like going to explode into joy confetti. Confetti.
Yeah, I heard that one recently.
I don't know. Kinda nice in a way. Having a deadline forces you to prioritize. It's a bit freeing as we get closer to the end.
You can really find the silver lining in everything, can't you?
No, it's just things don't always work out the way we want. No use getting upset, you know? Use what we can, leave what we can't.
Well, I mean, it depends. Like, you know, I mean, everybody's got different tastes in games. Like I said, I really like RPGs. I like games that have decent action as well. Yeah, so like that one was really pretty. Like gacha games are a little bit difficult to get into. The last gacha game that I did enjoy, but I did eventually stop playing, was Honkai Star Rail. Because it's like a turn-based RPG, so. Alright, thanks for showing up. I appreciate it, and thank you again for subscribing, Kacho. You're awesome. I hope you have a good rest of your day until I see you again. Can I save? I'll go a little bit farther here, and then I will probably save and wrap this up, and then I will try to make the determination before tomorrow if I'm going to continue to play this on stream or not.
Luna's playing. You two would make a cute couple.
I'm definitely going to be playing it off stream, like, regardless, so you guys might miss out on some of the story in between.
You really think you're doing something, eh? Out there?
Maxine, you're drunk.
None of you ever come back. You go and you take our resources and you waste it all on a fucked up hero adrenaline fantasy. And still, she kills us.
You should go home. Where's your daughter?
Where do you think? Mourning her mother on the anniversary of her death. Of all their deaths.
Then maybe you should be with her.
I can't look at her. She's just another reminder that nothing we do matters. Nothing. We hope and we persevere, and still they die. They all die and we can't stop it. We can't save them. We bring another generation into this world just so they can watch us die before they're even old enough to understand why.
That's why we're going. We can save them. With our Lumina tech. The Paintress.
The Paintress? What? What's a scrawny shit like you gonna do to the Paintress, eh? We're already dead. You're just catching up.
Maxime.
Forget it. Bon voyage.
Damn, son. I mean, I'd rather go out swinging, so... I mean, I get what dude is saying, but shit, gotta at least try.
This lady truly is exquisite.
In love?
Not quite. I'm only in love with her art. My inspiration has been quite lacking recently.
Yeah,
Nobody buys paintings anymore. Just because she is called the paintress doesn't mean painting is evil.
Your canvas seems quite empty.
I need inspiration. But you, I can see you're in love. But with this fine gentleman, I suppose.
We broke up.
That is of no consequence in the matters of love.
Ooh, called out.
But it is this passion I so fiercely desire in my painting. I know. How about showing me a dance of love and sorrow? I am also the official painter of the opera.
Ooh, I'm kind of a big deal.
Will you help me? If you inspire me, you may become the main painting of Lumiere's opera.
Okay.
Fantastic. You may start. Here, gorgeous lady, take this paintbrush and show me your wrath.
Okay, I guess.
Come on, dodge your lady's beautiful moves. Come on, dodge your lady's beautiful moves. Come on, dodge your lady's beautiful moves. That was splendid. One more time.
Shit.
Come on, dodge your lady's beautiful moves.
No, I'm so bad at this.
Come on, dodge your lady's beautiful moves. Sublime. One last time.
This doesn't bode well for my combat skills.
That was splendid. Splendid.
Yeah, me too. That's why I was caught off guard. I was like, what?
I was so enthralled that I completed the
Damn,
painting in
dude.
an instant.
You're insane, man.
It's nice to know something of us will remain in the world after today.
Are you secretly Iraqi?
Thank you.
It is I who should thank you. It was a moving dance. I will propose it for the new opera painting we have to do this year.
I feel it wasn't that impressive, but okay.
Love will always be impressive.
Yeah.
Also, take this as a gesture of appreciation. I see your not boyfriend is an expeditioner. It may prove useful.
Thanks, dude. Knew I could count on an artist to give me something. Trash can.
Please.
Something. Something. So seeing things. Okay.
Sometimes I feel sorry for her.
Who? The paintress?
Look at her. She looks sad. Maybe she's a prisoner too, stuck in the same cycle with us. Silly, huh?
Only you could choose empathy at a moment like this.
It's one of the few choices I can make.
I couldn't do it.
It's okay. You don't have to.
Hey. A weird mime is standing here.
Hello? Gustav, help!
What? Okay. Oh shit, I've got hit. Hey. Oh, it was like invisible. Oh my god. Oh my god. Silence is a static effect that prevents the character from skills. This is not going well already. I'm getting my ass beat. Oh, I don't have any. Well. Oh, ow, fuck. Yeah, it is.
Let's leave it alone, Gustav. It's dangerous.
Alright, well, that beat the shit out of me. Yeah, the frame rate, one, makes it really difficult. I'm actually also not good at, like, timing things, so that doesn't bode well for me. If I'm gonna be honest here, I'm pretty shit at it. But... yeah, the frame rate certainly doesn't help, but I won't 100% lie on cope and say that it would have made a difference.
I'll see you soon enough.
Aww. Boyfriend. So sad. The people, the docs, are the ones who won't gomage. They are here to show the solidarity for those wearing flowers. Oh no, it's... my computer is absolutely struggling with this. I have a 13-year-old motherboard, and my graphics card is not the greatest, so... like, I can play a lot of, like, older games just fine, but, like, as far as, like, new, like, next-gen games, it's kind of like, bleh. I mean, I do have, like, a lot of RAM, which is good for, like, my artwork, but... we'll have gathered for the gomage. The patrons will wake soon. I don't know, like, computer parts are incredibly expensive right now, so... I mean, there's literally nothing I can do about it at the moment, so...
I've always loved the harbor.
I just have to, like, basically cycle through, like, games that my computer can handle, so... It just sucks because, like, I don't know.
I see you're apprentices.
Oh.
Gustav!
What?
Here, Sophie asked us to bring you your coat.
We sewed up the sleeve so you don't have to keep rolling it up.
You guys know how to sew?
Sophie helped us. Turns out it's not that hard. You really should have done this ages ago.
You did this?
Gentlemen, that was supposed to be between us, yeah?
Right.
I wanted to do something for you.
Soph. Thanks, guys. This is great. Thank you.
See you at the festival?
Don't leave without saying goodbye.
Yeah, of course not. What? I know that face.
You mean a lot to them. I can tell.
Yeah, they mean a lot to me too. Legacy can take many forms, right?
Yeah.
You taught me that.
Right.
Why?
I wanted to see you wearing it.
Oh, you like uniforms now?
Wait, it just changed in public. Right, everybody.
This too is your legacy.
The uniforms are pretty cool.
In a way. It's yours too.
Wait, she. Okay. Well, hey, thanks for hanging out. I was going to wrap this up in a second anyway, so I appreciate it, man. Tell Gargona I said hi. Tell your dad I said hello. You guys are awesome. Have a good day, Alex. Dum-dum.
Esti tornere marina, esti l'inaki soledad, tona l'ora tovla, alina. Esta surano taki les renoir tonari fuego verso
Oh, they like piff. Oh wait, is she about to piff? It's cool. Power and everything.
I'm here.
Oh, that's so sad.
There you are. You can't hide from us, you know. Like I said, mourning's best done with friends.
Lucien,
What? It is. Grieving alone's the worst.
where's mine?
Santé, les amis.
Santé!
Yeah, no, yeah, could use a drink.
Five tables this year. You see that? Told you we'd beat the 34s. Even Maëlle showed up, and she hates these things. Wanna go take a look?
I don't... Maybe later. I'll catch up. I'm okay. I'm okay. You go.
He's not. That's a
Time
lot.
for a refill anyway.
There's an excess of wine, again. Thank your sister for her generosity.
Oh, and try to enjoy yourself. Don't drink alone, you weirdo.
Yeah, right. Enjoy myself.
Alright. Let's see. Save. There is. Let's have autosave. see anything that looks like a save point here. Okay. I'm gonna call this here, so let me go ahead and guys in the lobby. I want to thank you guys so much for hanging out with me today. We finished up Code Vein, which is pretty awesome. It was my first ever Souls-like game. Sorry, I'm stretching. That I completed. So thanks for being with me on that journey. It's fantastic. I'm not 100% sure whether I'm going to continue to play this game on stream or not. I kind of would like to have enjoyed it in the best quality I can, and I think OBS and everything's putting a lot of strain on it. So I'm thinking what I'll do is I'll do some testing later tonight to see which of the games that I have, which will run well. I'm pretty sure I can run the Resident Evil games with no issues, so most likely I'll probably pick one of those. Yeah. Anyway, if you like the kind of content I do, please follow me to see when I go live. Consider subscribing. That would help me out tremendously. I will be back tomorrow with another game, and then after that, we'll work